Hi everybody, this is Jessica from Pug Stitches Knits, and I'm just going to show you very quickly some tips for how to keep your color work looking nice and flat and your floats looking loose in the correct length. So a couple quick tips. Wool or wool blends are a lot easier to knit color work with than pure acrylic because you can block it and it'll flatten out a little better. Acrylic isn't quite as forgiving. Also, if you are newer to color work, start with something easier like a hat, not like something like small like this. Like you'll see when I'm knitting, these are the really small 9-inch and they're handy, but at the same time, the 9-inch circulars are like a little finicky, so it's not as smooth knitting. That being said, if you're knitting small circumference, I do like the 9-inch because I don't have edges like where I go from one needle to another needle, and I'll show you that a little later, what I mean by that. But so first tip I have for knitting loosely is it doesn't really matter how you hold your yarn. I hold one in each hand. You could hold them both in the same hand. You could pick them up and take them down, but the key is when I change colors, I spread out the stitches on my right hand needle before I start the new color. And I do that pretty automatically, so it's already done, but some of you might really have your stitches kind of like smushed together on the side. And so if I go to switch right away, I'm going to have a really short float. So I want to just spread those out and then start my new color, and then I have a much looser float. And if you ever did find your floats are just too loose, you could always catch them on the next round, but I wouldn't worry about that too much. So again, spreading it out before I switch colors. Spread it out before I switch colors. So this is what I do now to keep my floats at a tension that I like. What I used to do, and another tip that people do, and if you're super tight, you could even do both, is to flip your work inside out. So when we have our work regularly, our floats are on the inside, which is a smaller circumference than our knitting, so it makes them tighter. When we have the floats on the outside, they're going to be a little larger circumference than our knitting, which will just naturally make them looser. So the key to this is when I have it flipped out is I'm just going to have my needles working in the back of my loop instead of in the front. But then everything's just the same otherwise. I can still see my pattern right here. That's my end. And I'm just going to knit along. So you can do one of these tips or both, depending what works best for you. But those should definitely help it even out your floats on your knitting. Be sure to check out my other color work tip videos. And this is Jessica for Pug Stitches Knits.